Times men get multiple women pregnant on paternity court.
And the fact that it upsets her, I'm wondering, why does it upset you so much if I went down there anyway? Like, are you gonna get it if I don't claim it?
I called him dad because he raised me from the time I was 13.
Girl, no, he didn't raise
He bought
you.
my senior
Then why do
picture.
you always come to me for money and not them if he's
I
your
go
dad?
to them.
When poor Miss Wilson's son died a month ago, she had no idea so many women would flock to her home. Even worse, she was shocked to know that every single lady seemed to say that her son was the father of their kids. How could a dead man get multiple women pregnant?
I just want to know who's his kids, who's not his kids, because everybody's talking about they got kids.
How many women?
It's 11 people. We're talking 11 kids here. So
Oh my goodness. Miss
it's
Wilson.
not just these two young ladies, you know. It's other women that's like literally inboxing me.
While there are 11 women claiming Mr. Dames impregnated them, only 2 had the courage to show up in court today. First, Judge Lauren gives Miss Felix a chance to explain how everything happened. When Miss Felix starts telling her story, it's like Miss Wilson might get a heart attack.
He was a complete part of her life. He made sure I was doing right while I was pregnant. He was the one providing me the food. He went to every doctor's appointment. He was there throughout the whole thing. She also knew about it. She used to come to my house. We used to play cards and hang out. So we were in a serious relationship, and she knows it.
So if Miss Felix says that Miss Wilson knew her son had a daughter with her, and she even maintained a special bond with her, what's the reason for Miss Wilson denying all these paternity claims now? It's really heartbreaking for Miss Felix, especially because Mr. Dames himself admitted that he was the father.
Before my son died, we was talking for the past 6 months before he passed away. He had doubt about several kids. Her baby was one, Darielle baby was the next one. He told me not to say anything to anybody about it, so I kept it a secret between him and I.
Once the true story's out, it becomes clear that Mr. Dames wasn't honest with any of these women. He faked being the father of all these babies and kept telling different stories to his mother. What hurt Miss Wilson was how these women immediately called Social Security so they could have money. And Mr. Dames hadn't even gotten a funeral yet.
I had no clue. You were supposed to wait till someone was buried to get Social Security. I didn't know you had to wait. He was paying child support for my baby anyway, okay? And the fact that it upsets her, I'm wondering, why does it upset you so much if I went down there anyway? Like, are you gonna get it if I don't claim it? Are you worried about them not getting the money? Like, what is your problem? I don't understand.
When Miss Felix keeps arguing, Miss Wilson brings in Miss Turner as witness, her son's cousin. She tells the judge the same thing. How Mr. Dames knew Miss Felix cheated on him. So, is the baby even his? But Miss Felix claims that her daughter called Mr. Dames daddy, and now that he's gone.
It got to Darielle baby. I never took part of Darielle baby since day one. And when she brought that kid to my house, I told her that baby looks just like her. He doesn't look like my son. Those were the words I told her out my own mouth. I never had any parts with that baby, period.
Miss Wilson ended up having a fight with Mr. Dames when he was alive. When she saw how carelessly he signed his name on all those birth certificates, she told him to stop. At this point, Judge Lauren asks Miss Brown to share her side of the story, which puts Miss Wilson into a state of complete shock.
We moved pretty quickly, but we indeed were in a relationship. He claimed it and I claimed it. So we moved forward. Like I said, he came to me about me being pregnant. With the bug being planted in my ear, I went ahead, set the appointment. Him and his family member took me to the appointment, found out that I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant July 15th.
Miss Wilson seemed uninterested in having any kind of a relationship with her son's potential kids. In fact, none of the women who claim Mr. Dames got them pregnant received any kind of child support either. So, are they really in it for the money? Guess it's time for Jerome to hand over the envelope.
Mr. Dames is the father.
Sorry about that, Louis. I will be a part of her life.
Mr. Dames is the father. You all are still processing.
It's bound to turn into a tricky situation when 2 daughters are fighting over their daddy. Miss Boyer and Miss Fields both think Mr. Sandifer is their father, and they're not going to leave the court until they've settled this once and for all. first, it's Miss Fields' turn.
2 years ago, I sent him a message on Facebook asking him if I could borrow some money, and he responded with, maybe I need to find my real dad, that he wasn't even my father.
That's not true. I was upset, Your Honor, at that point in time because she just kept on aggravating me about money, and that's the only time I've ever heard from her is when it was money.
Judge Lauren ends up asking Mr. Sandifer if he helped raise Miss Fields, but he says he was there for half her life. It was her grandparents who actually raised her. Because of financial issues, he couldn't support Miss Fields. And at the same time, he never even signed the birth certificate.
My name's not on her birth certificate. Doesn't have no comparison to me or any of my family.
You are my father. You are my father. I don't compare to you because you were never around me.
I have doubts.
I was adopted to my grandparents because my mother couldn't afford. She couldn't afford to take care of 3 children by herself.
Mr. Sandifer ends up arguing with poor Miss Fields and starts blaming her. But he's forgetting that he's the adult in this situation, and if he had doubts, he should have gotten a DNA test right in the beginning. Instead, he starts blaming the grandparents now.
I called him dad because he raised me from the time I was 13.
Girl, no, he didn't raise
He bought
you.
my senior
Then why do
picture.
you always come to me for money and not them if he's your dad?
I go to them, but you're my father.
But
you're
you always
supposed
say
to
that
do
he's
for
come
me.
down
You are
to me.
supposed to do for me. You
You'll
are
help
my
me
father.
before they
Introduce
will.
me as your child.
On top of that, Miss Fields had no idea someone else might be her father. At this point, Judge Lauren is curious about her relationship with Miss Boyer. Turns out they've got a rocky relationship, and it's because where Mr. Sandifer abandoned Miss Fields, he actually fought for Miss Boyer's custody. Time for her chance to speak.
He was in a relationship with my mother when I was born, and he lived with us till I was 5 years old. The reason there is another man on my birth certificate, Your Honor, is because my mother was married and separated.
And told me I was the father.
But because she was still married back 30 years ago, you had to put your husband on the birth certificate.
When Miss Boyer's mother abandoned her forever, it was Mr. Sandifer who showed up for her. After one long legal battle, he finally had her custody, but even then, he had his doubts. The only reason he didn't raise them was because he didn't want to leave the poor girl alone.
If you're not my dad, why did you fight for me?
Because I love you and I manned up. Why did you leave me when I already had custody and go back to your mother? That's what I don't understand.
I didn't go to my mother.
You did?
I went to
Atlanta,
my brother.
to Georgia?
When I went to visit him, though, when he brought me back, I was 14 years old.
With Mr. Sandifer now arguing with Miss Boyer, Judge Lauren interrupts them and asks about the poor woman's feelings. She admits she felt abandoned, and Mr. Sandifer starts arguing that it was because she quit school. But as her legal father, wasn't it his job to ensure she went to school?
May not have been the best dad in the world, but I tried my darndest. I worked my butt off so hard and tried to do things for y'all when I can and when I can afford it.
So pretty much, Ms. Boyer, you blame him.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because you feel like this relationship or lack of relationship caused you to drop out of school.
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's why Miss Boyer's suing Mr. Sandifer for the same amount it takes to sign up for the GED. Both of these women are trying to find out whether this man is their father. It's caused them a lot of distress growing up, and the only way to erase that trauma is to see what the DNA says.
Mr. Sandifer, you are not her father.
I was sure he was my father.
God almighty.
My kids need a grandparent, so I've got to find.
You got one. You got a father still. You still got a father.
I would love for you to be in their life.
Sometimes women really need to learn a lesson. For example, try not to sleep with a married man. But oh well, it's not completely Miss Streeter's fault because she had no idea Mr. Hartfield had a wife back at home. Now, there's a child with no known father and a marriage that could break apart.
We were dating about 8 months, a long time. We were in a relationship, a committed relationship with just me and him. Throughout the whole relationship, he wanted to have a baby. He said he didn't get to raise any of his. We went to the hospital and we got the birth control taken out together. We went together.
She's telling you guys a bunch of lies.
The entire time Miss Streeter is telling her story, Mr. Hartfield keeps interrupting her. She says that they tracked down her menstrual cycle so they could have sex during the fertility window. That's how desperate he was to have sex with her. What does he have to say for all this cheap behavior?
I made that very
lying.
clear.
He's
In
lying.
fact, Your Honor, if I'm lying, then how would she have information to call my wife when I was paying her, paying her not to tell my wife about the situation?
Our first time having sex, we went down
Because
the
I did
street
not
from
pay
his
the
house
rent,
to a hotel.
she called her.
He's lying. That don't have nothing to do with why I called your wife.
But the real question is, how did Miss Streeter find out about this guy's wife? Well, one day, a relative's name slipped from Mr. Hartfield's tongue. Miss Streeter did what any woman would have done. She went to Facebook for a little stalking mission, and that's when she discovered the nasty truth.
I text her and let her know, like, your husband's been cheating on you for 8 months and I'm 5 months pregnant. He's trying to make it seem like we was never in a relationship and this never happened, but he just texted me just recently trying to get back with me, trying to tell me he want to be with me.
Oh my God.
So that's
Is
why.
that true, sir?
No.
So Mr. Hartfield really was two-timing with his wife and Miss Streeter. That's got Judge Lauren in a state of pure shock. And the worst part is, he tries to justify it by saying he was playing some kind of game with Miss Streeter. This throws the judge into disbelief, and she starts asking what 46-year-old plays pregnancy games with a 22-year-old.
You're dealing with a guy that ain't got no money, so now you waste your time.
That's not
Now
true. That's not
but
true.
because you done wasted so much time telling people that he's your baby's father, that now you got to play the role. And so that's exactly what she's been doing.
Nobody don't care about money because I was with here because I love him.
Baby daddy hangs up on
Genuinely,
you
I was
if you
supposed to
ask
be
for money.
Finally, Judge Lauren gives Mrs. Hartfield a chance to speak. After all, it must be painful for her sitting there listening to her husband fight with his mistress. So, how did Mrs. Hartfield even find out about the whole situation?
How did you even find out about this entire affair?
The text message that I received from her.
You get a text message.
A random text message that says, I'm in a relationship with your husband and have been for 8 months, and I'm pregnant. And that's it.
What do you do from there?
What the bleepity bleep is going on here?
Mrs. Hartfield told Miss Streeter the truth. Mr. Hartfield wasn't man enough to help raise her kids, so there's no way he was going to be there for Miss Streeter. At first, he showed a lot of enthusiasm about raising a new baby, but then he openly admits to the court that he never said any of it.
His name is placed on the certificate of birth. So, Mr. Hartfield, you're a married man, but you're on this child's original birth certificate.
No, well, the name is printed. There's no signature of mine.
So, at first, you allowed your name to be printed?
They did that while I wasn't there, Your Honor.
This is the first copy before he took off the name.
Mr. Hartfield, you're saying it didn't go like this?
It didn't.
Basically, so far, these two have been trying to convince Judge Lauren that the other person's been lying. Mr. Hartfield wants to make amends in his relationship with his wife, while Miss Streeter wants him to man up and take care of the baby. Who will the results favor?
You are the father. Do you understand now what you just made a child with?
Right.
I don't know what he told you up until this point. I will say that con men like him, they can be very charismatic. You two are both very beautiful young women. You don't have to deal with this. But I want you to see clearly in this courtroom today how he has acted.
It's one thing to father a child, but it's absolutely chaos when you've already got a girlfriend with kids. Mr. Macon got Miss Puckett pregnant, and now the baby boy's almost 2 years old. Yet he keeps denying this kid so he can save his relationship with his girlfriend, Miss Glover.
She got 5 kids by 5 different baby daddies.
And you could be the 6th.
No, I ain't. If we ain't have sex till like 3 months after, I wouldn't even have sex with her.
But you did have sex
Me
with her.
and Miss Glover, we wasn't together at the time.
Did you use protection?
Yes,
You did.
but it was.
Mr. Macon says that Miss Puckett's been obsessed with him since they met. She went and got a tattoo on her neck 3 weeks after meeting him. And when he got her pregnant, he refused to believe her. On top of that, she had no idea he already had a girlfriend.
He was treating me real good. He buy me stuff. He gave me money when I needed it. If I needed anything, my kids anything, he'd do for them. When I was pregnant, he was rubbing on my belly like he was happy and he was concerned about it. And I have a picture of him rubbing on my belly when I was about 6 months.
Let me see that picture. Jerome, will you hand it to me, please? Is this you?
Yeah.
But Miss Puckett was a wild woman. She wanted to have sex every day. Mr. Macon already has a kid with his girlfriend, and his name is Macon Jr. And guess what Miss Puckett's kid is named? Macon Jr. too. So not only did he get 2 women pregnant, he made them both name their kids after him.
He came in and he was looking at the baby, playing with my son, and then so he said, so what you naming him? I said, I'm naming him after my brother. I said, because that's what my grandma want me to do. No, you're not naming him that. You're not naming him that. You name him Steve. So he said, call the nurse. I called the nurse and she said, are you sure this is your child? He said, yeah.
Then Miss Puckett submits the birth certificate as evidence, but Mr. Macon keeps insisting that he never signed it. The court knows sometimes people forge official documents, so they decide to call the hospital to counter-check Miss Puckett's claim. Then Miss Glover presents her testimony.
I didn't answer because I have kids, my kids in the house, and the way she was doing, boom, 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 kicking the door. Why would I answer the door like that?
I ain't gonna do nothing to no kids. I'm coming for you.
To me, I don't know her.
All right, let's get some order. Let's get some order.
Judge Lauren scolds Miss Glover for blaming Miss Puckett because it was Mr. Macon who actually trapped her into a love affair. It's not her fault that Miss Glover's boyfriend turned out to be so dishonest. Well, the lives of 2 kids is hanging in the middle, so Jerome better bring out the results ASAP.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Macon Sr., you are his father.
You know what? You sent her that text message talking about some that's your baby, that y'all can go have sex on into the sunlight. Well, sunlight time, baby. I'll holler.